So good morning, everyone. Again, thank you so much for tuning in this morning. I'm happy to be here today to introduce the Indiana State Poultry Association and hopefully help you kind of understand their role as it fits into working with Extension as well as our 4-H programs, because I think we may have a couple of superintendents that have joined us this afternoon or this morning. Again, this presentation will be recorded to share with them as well if you'd like to share it at your poultry meetings with those superintendents or just for their general knowledge. But this morning, a couple of objectives that we hope to accomplish through this presentation is, again, defining exactly what the State Poultry Association is, as well as kind of overviewing the blood testing, discussing a little bit more about antigen, and then just, again, making connections, because I know many of you are asked to do these things, but maybe don't always understand. A lot of us are very scientific, so we're hoping to kind of help gain and build our knowledge. So that way, when people ask us, well, why do we have to do this? We can help them understand that first and foremost, it's about being a bigger picture of the industry itself as it relates to poultry, and also just equip you with the knowledge that you need to be able to have those conversations at the local level. So at this time, I would like to introduce Becky, and I hope I say this right, Yanishkan. She is the president of the Indiana State Poultry Association. We have Jeffrey Dutchman, who is the state and federal programs coordinator. And I believe we are also joined by Chelsea Leatherman, who is the poultry health specialist. So without further ado, I will turn it over to the Indiana State Poultry Association. And again, want to thank all of you and thank them for their time this morning and sharing the information that we're all excited to learn about.
Good morning. Thank you, Courtney. That was a great introduction, and really appreciate your kind words. And we really are proud to be part of the Purdue team, and happy and excited to kind of talk about how we work together and how we can do that even better. So my name is Becky Yonishkan. Very close. Becky works just fine whenever in doubt. And let's see, we do have a PowerPoint and we are also recording this morning, as you can see. So we'll be able to share this on, or, if there's something that we discussed that you want to go back and listen to again, hopefully that'll be there. And we are always available for questions as well. So let's see, without further ado, Mr. Deutschman will fire up the PowerPoint here. Oh, yes. There we go. So again, my name is Becky Yonishkan. I'm the president of Indiana State Poultry Association. I just joined the Poultry Association in August of 2020. The very long time president of the association, Paul Brennan, he and his wife, Linda, retired after Paul's 28 and a half years of service, which is pretty incredible. It was really nice. We were able to kind of transition for a couple of months there. He left on Halloween, and Linda had been with the organization for 10 or 12 years. So, we really, it was great to have an opportunity, even in the craziness of COVID, to to kind of learn the job a little bit. I came from, or previously worked at, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. Some of you may have seen me somewhere along the way talking about waste management issues around an avian influenza incident. So that's really how I got to know the Poultry Association, and that's kind of the specialty and background that I bring to the organization. So there's that. So throughout the presentation today, Jeffrey's going to present a few things, and so is Chelsea Leatherman, who's our poultry health specialist. So there's a lot that I'm learning, so we can all just learn together. So let's see. Let's go ahead and advance, please.
Well, it could be for that, for the existing system you're talking about.
Oh, and a reminder to please mute your microphones. Thank you. First, kind of rah-rah poultry. Indiana is the most diverse poultry industry in the nation. We're #1 in duck production with Maple Leaf and Culver in the northeastern corner of the state. We're second in egg and pullet production, which is significant considering the geographical size of our state. So lots of action in egg, and the egg production is really in all 4 corners of the state. We're 4th in turkey production. All of our turkey production, for the most part, is in the southwestern part of the state. We do have one operation, I believe, over near Jay County, or in Jay County, maybe. But all of those are like 50-pound toms. So what we don't produce whole turkeys, we produce ground turkey and turkey parts. That's a question we got a lot this last November when people were concerned about would there be enough turkeys to put on the tables for Thanksgiving. We also have 2 major broiler complexes. We're nowhere near a significant national ranking in broilers. These are the kind of chickens that you would go, have a fried chicken. But we have a Tyson complex down near Corydon in the southern part of the state. And then Miller Poultry is up in the northeastern part of the state. Very significant, sizable operation up there. So, all right, next slide, please. I might add to that, we have a pretty significant kind of economic contribution to the state of Indiana. About 50% of the corn and soybeans grown in Indiana go to animal feed. And of that amount, about 50% go to poultry. So very quickly, our industry multiplies out, into lots of other jobs within the community. Those numbers are a little rough, and not every single, piece of corn or soybean stays in the state of Indiana, but that gives you a general sense of that. Any questions about the industry in Indiana in general? And please feel free to stop me if you'd like to ask a question as we go. I'm happy to stop and answer questions. All right, so the Indiana State Poultry Association is the official state agency for the National Poultry Improvement Plan. And so those are federal regulations. And so we're charged with implementing most of that. We do share some of that responsibility with the Board of Animal Health, but it is in Indiana state law that we are responsible for that. So we get some support from Purdue. I mean, that's where we're housed, and things like benefits and that sort of thing. But most of our funds come from our membership dues, our commercial members largely, and we have a cooperative agreement with the USDA, and then there's a certain amount of state funding as well. We also get a little bit of checkoff funding from a turkey and from eggs, from American Egg Board. All right, next slide, please. Let's see here. So what's interesting about the National Poultry Improvement Program is that it really started at the request of the industry themselves. And Courtney was talking earlier about kind of the why, why is it that our extension agents, why do we ask you to kind of pay attention to and follow along with our PT or Pullorum-Typhoid testing? And that's really because in the early 1900s, people would get almost all their chicks mail delivery, and the chicks would arrive, things would be good, and then all of a sudden all the birds are dead. And so not a great look for the industry overall, and they just felt like they really needed to get a handle on that so that the rest of the industry could thrive. So they approached the USDA in 1935 and started this National Poultry Improvement Program. Over time, and it really started with Pullorum-Typhoid, which is something that kind of develops in the egg, and then it goes on from there. as the years have gone by, they've added a number of other diseases, and they are listed here. I'm not going to read them all to you. And we monitor those. Those are tested for across the state. And when there are positive cases of those, we work with, whether it be we work with our commercial or NPIP members to address those issues. And again, our most significant one is avian influenza, because of that potential for the jump to humans, and just its potential for just kind of widespread and fast infection. Any questions there? All right, you can go on, please. All right, here just kind of gives you a little bit of a graphic here to help you understand our organization, which I will tell you is not as much as it might kind of look like a pyramid there. There's a lot of horizontal coordination that goes on there. So we're led by Dr. Elena Banky and her staff with the National Poultry Improvement Program. They're based down in Georgia. There are also some live bird marketing folks who are out in the DC area. So those are our kind of official regulators. And then the Indiana State Board of Animal Health, and led by Dr. Marsh, and I at the Indiana State Poultry Association kind of work together and coordinate our staff. We're very fortunate to have Dr. Mike Kopp, who many of you, he's been, we were with him yesterday. I think he said he's been working for the Board of Animal Health for 38 years. He's their avian, health vet. So we have, we're very fortunate to have a lot of deep, broad knowledge of avian health there at the State Board of Animal Health. And then Dr. Kyle Shipman also helps out some with the avian health and also with disease preparedness and response. Dr. Maria Cooper is also involved there with biosecurity, but we work with them closely. And then over on the right, we've got the County Fair Poultry Superintendents, which we're talking a bit about today. All of you as extension educators out there. And then our National Poultry Improvement Program authorized agents are kind of who's, a little bit more out in the field and interacting with typically our smaller folks. So next. All right, and if you hadn't already kind of picked up on this before, just a slide to reinforce, we really do try to be, our goal here is to be a cooperative program, not be a regulatory, everything filters down kind of situation. We're here, kind of compliance is how people can raise healthy birds and we can have a good, strong industry. But there's no point in having compliance that people can't achieve. So, really try to work with the industry, try to work with those involved and interested in poultry to figure out what works for them and their systems that is also protective of the bird's health. So Purdue is definitely, a lot of times you are our front line there. You're maybe the first person that somebody in a community will reach out to and ask questions of. So you're very much a part of that group and that communication. All right, next, please. I believe we're going to shift to Miss Chelsea Leatherman now, who's going to talk about kind of what we do when we go out in the field to our commercial plants and our exhibition folks as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chelsea Leatherman. I'm the poultry health specialist with the ISPA. So like Becky said, I'm going to touch on ISPA and our role with the National Poultry Improvement Plan. So it kind of falls into two different categories. We have our NPIP commercial participants, as well as our NPIP exhibition participants. So when it comes to the commercial, the ISPA's role is we're going out, we're doing the processing plant inspections, the breeder inspections, flock inspections, hatchery inspections, lab inspections. We also do biosecurity reviews with each company. And for the commercial folks, we work with them on an authorized agent testing school. So they're proficient in AI testing. For the NPIP exhibition membership, so with that, our office assists with their annual testing requirements. So when you become an NPIP exhibition member, they're required to Pullorum-Typhoid test their flock once a year. So we're there to help set them up with blood testers. We're there to help advise them with any health issues they may be seeing in their flocks. And then with the exhibition participation, that allows those members to travel across state lines to go to shows. It allows them to ship hatching eggs and chicks. So we assist in that paperwork to make sure that all moves fluidly for them. Okay, our Indiana NPIP blood testing school. So in a normal year, we would host 2 of those, one up at Purdue University in Creighton Hall, and one down in Du Bois, Indiana, at the Southern Indiana, SciPac. So at the school, we train individuals how to perform the PT test. We also train them on biosecurity and some other things. Let's see. Our role with the county fair and state fairs. So we're there to help oversee and assist with the PT testing requirements, basically. So as those questions come in, we're there to help, advise and point folks in the right direction with those requirements, which I will touch on a little bit more. Jeffrey? Okay. So with the, kind of froze on me. Okay. So with subpart E, it is national law, and it, as Becky touched on, we adopted it into Indiana law. So for PT certification and testing requirements for exhibition, all poultry, including exhibition and game birds, excluding waterfowl that are going to any public exhibition, so the county fairs, state fairs, any other shows, they either need to come from a U.S. Pullorum-Typhoid clean flock, so those are those NPIP exhibition flocks, or they need to have a negative Pullorum-Typhoid test within 90 days of going to those shows. So that's the big one.
So Chelsea, I'm
Yes.
going to ask the question that I get a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I buy my birds at Rural King
Yes.
or Tractor Supply or wherever. What do I do to prove that? What do I need to ask for?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
Okay. So if you're buying birds from Tractor Supply or Rural King, those are both farm stores that participate in the National Poultry Improvement Plan for the state of Indiana. So those chicks are coming from NPIP clean hatcheries. So the folks that are buying those chicks from those stores, they can request the paperwork showing that those birds are coming from the clean sources. And I'll touch on it here, I think, in a slide or two. But they can also double check where they're buying those birds from if they're participating in a program. Our exhibition members who are also have that PT clean status. So a 4-H'er buying from one of those guys, they can also provide the appropriate paperwork showing that their flocks are PT clean and those chicks or, juvenile birds, whatever they're purchasing, come from an NPIP clean source. And we're there to assist in all that. So if anybody has questions, we can definitely help.
Hey, Chelsea, a
Yes.
quick question. So people can have maybe birds from a lot of different sources in their flocks. Is it important that they focus on, only getting their birds, whether they be chicks or juveniles, from those PT clean sources in order to have that apply to the entire flock? Or is it bird specific to the bird that goes to the exhibition?
Okay. So every bird that is going to an exhibition needs to be PT tested or have proof that they've come from an NPIP clean source. So if a 4-H'er is showing 20 birds, they have to have all 20 of those birds PT tested or show the proof that they purchased them from a PT clean source. Same thing if they're only showing 5. Those specific 5 birds, have to be tested, or you have to have the paperwork showing they came from a clean source.
So sorry, I guess my question is, that was good. Maybe to build on that, if you had a flock of 30 birds, 20 of them you had good paperwork for, but 10 of them not so much. Are those 20 that are going to the show, how are they affected by those other 10 that maybe came from the neighbor, or something?
So I guess are you talking if the member is an NPIP clean or just a regular 4-H'er?
I'm just a regular 4-H'er going to a show. Like if, like I say, like 2/3 of their flock, they can prove came from a PT clean flock, but the other third, they can't. Even if that other third aren't going to the show, does just by virtue of being with the ones that are, by virtue, because I'm thinking we have a lot of probably mixed flocks, people getting birds at different times from maybe a variety of sources.
So Pullorum-Typhoid is it's a vertical transmitted disease. So it comes from hen to chick. So an adult bird isn't going to pass it to another adult bird. It has to be passed from hen to egg to chick. So yeah, if a 4-H'er or anybody has, 20 birds that are tested and 10 birds that aren't, there's not going to be any, cross-contamination there. It just comes down to when they're going to show, they need to make sure, if those untested birds, they need to test them, and the birds that are tested, they have to show proof that they are tested. Does that make sense?
It does, and I learn something new in this job every day, which I guess I kind of already knew, but I hadn't put together. So thank you.
Hey, Chelsea, before you move on, Abby Morgan had a question in chat, and she wanted to know, she says, I have had people ask me if their birds are from Indiana. Do they still need tested?
Okay. Yeah, so if you're going to an exhibition, even if you're within Indiana and you're going to an Indiana show, you still need to test within that 90 days or show proof that they come from a PT clean flock.
I have a question. I have a question.
Okay.
Would you please, the next time you change the rules, give some of us a little more advance warning? We just had a poultry show here in Spencer, and we sent out entries the 1st of March when there wasn't a requirement. And then lo and behold, after we get entries out, there is a requirement, and that's fine making a decision in April for county fairs or into March for county fairs in June and July. But man, it put us in a whirlwind. Please do something by the 1st of the year if you're going to make any changes.
Thank you. Thank you for that input. And I know and Courtney kind of touched on it in her intro, so we can go ahead and talk about it. The PT testing and the lack of supply of the antigen really made things difficult. And I regret that we didn't kind of inform you earlier. I think in our heads we were getting, as you've just said, getting ready for, that the 4-H fairs, and I'm sorry that caused stress in the situation. I am very hopeful we won't find ourselves in that situation again. It seems like the antigen producer has worked through whatever issues they were having, and there seems to be a pretty good supply of antigen. But thank you for that input, and we will make note of that. And if ever we have to kind of start or stop things, we will try to let you know farther in advance.
I'm concerned about how the supply is going to last, because I do know that where we buy our antigen from, I quickly called them. I think it was Friday. You guys put the edict down, and I called him on Friday, and he's a friend of mine, a poultry supplier, Hanks out of Ohio. And he said,
Mhm.
what's going on in Indiana? I've got 30 orders and I have 30 units on the shelf. And that was all in one afternoon. So, I mean, you shook a lot of people up.
Well, we're sorry for that. We were watching that supply of antigen and and also we found ourselves in a strange spot in terms of the National Poultry Improvement Program doesn't really give us authorization to put a pause like that on, but we knew people couldn't get the antigen and it was unreasonable to require it. So we're kind of in a weird little place with the National Poultry Improvement Program. So once they started to see that supply of an antigen available, they kind of started to nudge the states to get back to that. So we will continue to monitor that, and the National Poultry Improvement Program staff are aware of those issues, and it's definitely always a topic of conversation when we're with them. And if we find ourselves in the regrettable situation that we have to kind of pause that testing, or we just become aware that there's just not the antigen available to do this kind of widespread testing, we'll do our best to be a little bit more inclusive in our decisions.
Hey, Chelsea, I have Karen wanted to know, and I figure we might as well, since we're talking about antigen, Karen wanted to know where we can buy antigen from and some guidelines for like how soon before the fair should they order it.
So our office does maintain some contact info for sources that we know carry antigen. And yeah, if you reach out to us, we can help supply that. I think, Jeffrey, correct me if I'm wrong, is that also in the packet that we send out to Extension?
Yeah, we do. In the Poultry Superintendent booklet, there was a page on sort of 4 common companies that sell antigen. You can link to that. Well, you can find that information on our website as well. I do try and periodically check with the companies just to make sure that they still have antigen available. But yeah, and if anybody knows of a source or discovers a new company where they are selling this antigen, please let us know so that we can let other people know, But yeah, we try and have that information on our website.
Mm-hmm. And then as for how soon you should order it, definitely not something, you should not wait until the last minute to order it. If your fair is going to be testing, go ahead and get a bottle of it to have, just so you're not in that situation of you go to order it and for some reason they don't have it. So yeah, I would, if you have the opportunity and you're going to be testing, go ahead and order a bottle.
And Chelsea, just a follow-up question, how much do I know, like how many bottles do I know to order? Does it just depend on the number of birds that we have?
Yep. So in this year, they are actually selling the antigen in 2 different dose vials. One, I believe, is a 350 dose vial, and the other is 1,000 dose. So roughly, that 350 dose vial should test around 350 birds, that 1,000 dose vial around 1,000 birds. And there is some leeway there, but that will give you a rough idea.
Thank you.
And yeah, and you do need to pay attention to the expiration date on those. So, if you're questionable about how many doses you might need, you might, look at that smaller size. Although we did kind of learn that, the antigen does work beyond that expiration date. It's just more likely to give you false positives, that then causes concern. And when I ordered the bottle for ISPA, it took maybe 7 to 10 days to get here. And it had to arrive cooled and that sort of thing. So I think when it's in stock, that's probably, a reasonable advance. Give yourself 2 weeks before you think you might need it. If things are going well, hopefully it'll get to you by then. And as Chelsea said, sooner the better, really.
I do have one other question that sort of popped in, and we might as well cover this. Jennifer wanted to know, now that guidelines are loosening with COVID, do you think there will be a class for new superintendents? And that is, of course, and I'll touch on this a little bit later. Of course, you know, with COVID, we had to cancel the in-person blood testing school that we had planned in April. Although I'm intrigued by your suggestion of class for new superintendents, and I might, and in this day and age of being able to do something virtually, maybe that's something we can think about in the future. So I guess we'll get back with you, or we'll brainstorm on that. And then otherwise, Chelsea, I'll give it back to you.
I would love to see that as a 36-year superintendent, but also as someone who's judging a lot of county shows, county fairs, and there's an awful lot of superintendents who are someone who drew a short straw at a fair board meeting. And it'd be great to have educated some knowledge and stuff of education for superintendents.
Okay, yeah, that's a great suggestion. I think we'll definitely run with that. We'll do some brainstorming, and then we'll let everyone know.
I guess next slide, Jeffrey. Okay, here's just some NPIP definitions for subpart E. So those are your exhibition. So exhibition poultry, those are domestic fowl, such as chickens, turkeys, your game birds, again, domestic fowl, such as pheasants, partridges, quail, grouse, guinea, but not doves and pigeons. And then waterfowl, you know, normally anything that swims, such as ducks and geese. Big thing to remember when it comes to PT testing and exhibitions, waterfowl, doves, and pigeons do not need to be PT tested. So those are the three. Okay. And then the NPIP program has a great website. So folks can actually go to the website. They can, and as you can see in the image, there is a map. So if you hover over any state and click on it, it's going to bring up the NPIP participants for every state. So if somebody is looking to buy some birds, or, you know, they're told, yes, I'm an NPIP member, they can actually go to the National Poultry Improvement website, say, click on the state of Indiana and look at the directory of participants and be like, okay, yes, they are a participant. Yes, they have a PT clean status for their flock. Oh, hey, they also AI test. And that's good for out of state too. Say they're buying birds or hatching eggs from, you know, Missouri. They can go to the Missouri directory and double check that that individual is actually a participant and what their classifications are. So it is a great resource that's out there for everybody.
Chelsea, sorry, all these questions.
All right.
Everybody's learning along with me. Hey, so the paperwork that people need to go to shows, can you print anything off of this NPIP website, or is that something where you need to go to the participant and ask for, you know, certificates, or what does that paperwork look like? Where does it come from?
Okay, so the NPIP participants, when they sell, you know, chicks, hatching eggs, adult birds, they can print off paperwork called a VS Form 9-3 to accompany those birds to show they come from an NPIP clean source. And it can either come in an electronic version, or we have some folks that still use a paper version, but it's called a VS Form 9-3. And it just shows that that individual is an NPIP participant and those birds are coming from a clean flock. So yeah, that is paperwork that can be requested by 4-Hers or anybody that's buying birds for show purposes.
All right. Hey, Chelsea.
Yep.
So since we sort of touched on it, why don't you take a minute or two and just go over the process for becoming an exhibition member?
Okay. So it is a 3-part process, and it's all laid out on our website, inpoultry.com. So the first part is basically reaching out to our office. I would be the main contact. On our website, there is a fillable application. So you basically fill that out. It generates an email to our office where I can review it. If you need a list of certified blood testers to test your flock, I'll then supply that. Or, you may already have a blood tester lined up. So then you go about testing your flock. So the requirements are a minimum of 30 birds with 10% of your flock up to 300. If you don't have 30 birds, then you test everything that's between 16 and 24 weeks or over 24 weeks. So that's the magical window. So those birds need to be 16 to 24 weeks or older than that. Anything younger does not need to be tested. Once the flock is tested, the third part is payment. So the program costs $80 a year. Individuals can pay by debit, credit card, or check. Then what I do, so I submit their information to the national office for review. The national office actually assigns unique NPIP numbers to each individual's, and then they will be listed on the Poultry Improvement website. So once you become an NPIP exhibition member, that's good for the year. So you test your flock once. Once you become an NPIP member, the biggest thing though is if you're going to introduce any new birds into your flock, they need to be coming from another NPIP clean source or PT tested before those birds are introduced. Because if you introduce untested birds into that tested flock, you void your entire status. Let's see. And the great thing about, being an NPIP member, you test once for the year and you're done. So if you're going to a lot of exhibitions, you're testing once versus testing 90 days prior to every show. I think it's kind of a brief overview, but so yeah, if there's anybody that has questions, reach out to our office and we can go through it in a little bit more detail. And I think Jeffrey there included that information in the chat for you guys.
Yeah, that was
Good. Yeah.
that was Becky, but yeah.
Thank you.
So there's the whole thing there. Okay, well, hi, I'm Jeffrey Deutschman, State and Federal Program Coordinator. One of the main things that I do in the office is, I sort of coordinate and track the blood testing school. This slide is basically, well, this is sort of an overview of if we, in pre-COVID times, this is essentially the parts of blood testing school. This is what you could expect if you were attending. And of course, the main function of blood testing school is to teach the individual how to do the Pullorum-Typhoid plate test and to get them certified so they can go out and do that testing for the county fairs and for people wanting to become exhibition members and for 4-H'ers and whatnot. The course itself, to keep it interesting, because it's 4 hours long and we don't want people getting bored, we have a number of presenters that come from us and Purdue and a couple of professors participate. We have some Purdue ADDL staff come and do the lectures as well. Because as a student, you'll not only, of course, learn about PT, you get a whole primer on all the NPIP diseases and, seeing like, okay, what is this disease? What are some of the symptoms for it? And then one of the best parts of doing the class, of course, is getting this knowledge and learning about not just those NPIP diseases, but we will have a talk with them about like some more common poultry health issues, so that if they're out there testing and they see something, you know, maybe they can talk with the person. Or a lot of our blood testers, of course, have their own flocks, and so it's a good way to get some of that discussion going about, you know, what kind of health concerns are out there and what should people be looking for. As a reminder, of course, when you attend the class, you're certified for 3 years. And then after those 3 years, if you want to maintain your certification, you can do that through our blood tester renewal program, which is now mainly it's all online. We did have a component in pre-COVID where we would have, you know, the extension staff involved, where someone could still sign up online, and then we would work with you guys to have the person come in and they would take the test there. And, you know, it was a way of getting everybody involved and making sure, you know, everyone understands what's going on. Of course, in COVID, we had to shift this all online. And so now if somebody's wanting to recertify, they simply go to our website, they sign up, they get a confirmation email back that has a unique link for the blood testing exam, which they can fill out and send in at their leisure. The process costs $25 for that. And at the end, once they've passed the exam, they get a new blood tester ID card, which is good for 3 years. And we send them a packet of poultry information. One of the things, though, is I do encourage, when somebody's going to recertify, I strongly encourage them to go to our website and to check out the blood tester school manual section of our website, where we just have loads of information, everything that we would cover in the classroom setting, but we've adapted to the website. And there's some videos in there. On the slide is a picture of the tried and true video that was created by the USDA sometime in the 80s about doing a PT test. It's a pretty decent video. It takes a little bit to get through, but you get all the good information. It's a good review of the process of doing an actual PT test. And any questions on the recertification process or the schools in general? And let's see. So then the next thing is I just want to do a brief primer on we have this program called Indiana's Test 12 program. It's geared towards the backyard enthusiast, you know, somebody with a small flock that's wanting to get a health checkup on their poultry. And you can do that by submitting a dozen eggs to us. The program is totally free for them. It's essentially, again, you go to our website, you request the mailer, we send it out, you pack a dozen eggs in there, it gets mailed directly to Purdue ADDL that tests the eggs, and then you get the results back. Once Purdue ADDL receives the eggs, you usually will get the results back within a couple of days, several days at most for that. And it tests for PT, tests for MG. There is a AI test component to it. It looks for antibodies within the eggs. So as a test, it's not necessarily going to tell you that your poultry are currently suffering from these diseases, but what it will say is that your poultry were exposed to these diseases and you may need some additional testing after this. But this is a good first step, and like I said, it's totally free for, you know, anyone wanting to participate. And then next up, we have a lot of free materials that are available, a lot of free printed materials that are available for, you know, for your county fairs, for your 4-H groups. You can go onto our website and request these materials that we do have on the website. We also have a number of virtual materials, and then we have samples of the printed ones. On this slide, we just recently had a number of new materials printed up, and one of them that we're particularly happy with is Dr. Darren Karcher here at Animal Sciences Department. He produced a flyer for poultry capture and handling, safe methods for handling poultry and whatnot. It's a 4-page full color flyer that we have available that we can send out. USDA has a number of great checklist forms now for various parts of biosecurity. Like in this slide, I put an example of checklists for cleaning and disinfecting poultry enclosures. And of course, in this area of COVID, where we all know to wash our hands for 20 seconds, and we know to be conscious of that, this is a good checklist for reminding people about, okay, what do I need to do to make sure the poultry enclosures are clean and disinfected and whatnot. And they have a number of flyers that are good for handing out. Let's see, next one here. And then this slide is basically a reminder of the poultry superintendent resources that we do have available on our website. And we did mail out earlier this year the poultry superintendent booklet for 2021, which has, again, it has a number of poultry health flyers, poultry disease flyers in it, but it also has printed copies of the Indiana Poultry Exhibitor Form, which is the form that can be filled out for 4-H kids that have had 4-H participants that have had their flock PT tested. And you can use that form in lieu of the VS Form 9.2, which is anybody who's a blood tester will know that the 9.2 is the official USDA form with multiple copies and sometimes carbon paper. So for 4-H people, it's a lot easier to print out copies of this Indiana form and to use that. Less information to fill out on it, but still has all the key parts. And then as a poultry superintendent, when the fair has come and gone and all the birds have been tested and we're all celebrating, okay, that's 1 year down, looking forward to the next one, there is a superintendent NPIP report that needs to get filled out and sent in to the ISPA. It's basically the county's way of certifying that yes, the poultry that came to the show were properly tested for PT. Couple of boxes to check on the form, easy peasy, but it's also available online. Once again, they can go to the website on this slide and fill out the little form that we have there and submit it, and away we go. I sort of ran through this information, but I wanted to be conscious of your time. So in general, if there are any more questions, feel free to speak up or submit them in the chat box, and we're happy to answer any questions. Sure. I would be happy to send out reminders about the various poultry superintendent forms. No worries. I will do that. Any additional questions from the group?
We'll give you a few minutes to type anything into the chat, or if you think of something. Just want to say thank you for being out there in our 92 counties and kind of being that face of Purdue Extension and that local resource. I mean, we're just very blessed with our whole land grant university system to have that kind of network. So we appreciate the work that you do. Also, I think on behalf of our commercial industry, our commercial industry is always kind of following along and wants to encourage. Of course, they enjoy poultry; they're in the business. And I think they do enjoy how popular it's become as a backyard or 4-H activity. But we try not to over focus on disease too much, but it's there and it is a real threat to that industry. So just really trying to work together to, you know, to make sure there's good education and information, and that, you know, people can safely raise poultry and enjoy it and just be, you know, part of the system. So it's pretty impressive as we go out and visit our commercial members, just the variety of jobs and roles that are available there. You know, certainly I think it's a great opportunity, especially for kids in 4-H and other, you know, adults in the community. Participating in at the exhibition level, you know, to also have some awareness of job opportunities and you know, how the poultry industry impacts their communities. So I appreciate your attention. Let's see, we've got one question in the chat, and anything else we can help clear up, or opportunities for improvement. You know, we've the whole COVID experience, as I've stolen that phrase from Dr. Marsh, you know, has provided us an opportunity to kind of rethink some things. So are there things we can do to be of better support to you? You know, or things you've seen through the COVID experience that you think we can share our information or reach people a little differently, more effectively. I certainly made note of the online training for poultry superintendents, and we'll take a good look at that and see what we can do there. Well, we are an email or a phone call away, or if you happen to be on campus and they'll let you in the building and we're there, that's a lot of ifs. You know, we're all still working remotely for the most part, but we do, like Jeffrey's in the office today, we do come into the office some. But the ISPA at ISPA Purdue.edu website or email address is a good general one that gets to the whole crowd of us pretty quickly. And our phone number, we have the office phone number there. Kind of, it doesn't go directly to any of us. We're struggling a little bit with our phone, but it does get to us as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out with questions or concerns or, you know, thoughts, ideas. And at that point, I guess we thank you for your time and attention this morning. It's a gorgeous day out there. Thanks for carving out part of it for Indiana Poultry.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.